Howdy folks, Happy New Year, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. So, about my 2 weeks off over Christmas, I think I might have set a new record. How long did I last? 1 day? And then just got bored and went straight back to putting videos up every day. Yeah, I know. But you wouldn't have me any other way. Anyway, I'm going to start the year with my first sponsored section. I'm sure we're all aware that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of data broker firms out there with expensive and extensive personal information databases holding your details which they trade on a daily basis. Information which, if it were to fall in the wrong hands, could, for example, be used by criminals to open credit accounts in your name, or file tax returns in your name, or commit crimes in your name. The kind of activities which could take months or possibly even years to repair the financial and reputational damage. Now, Incogni has always gone after these big data brokers on your behalf, and you can get yourself 60% off an exclusive Incogni plan by heading over to incogni.com/jingles and using code JINGLES at checkout. But what Incogni are now offering, under their Unlimited and Family Unlimited plans, is a personal data removal service. If you happen to know, for example, of a people search website, just as one example, or any particular website that has your personal information, and you'd rather they didn't, simply copy the URL into Incogni, and one of their data protection agents will take care of everything else for you. New feature available under the Unlimited and Family Unlimited plans. And again, 60% exclusive discount by heading over to incogni.com/jingles and using code JINGLES at checkout, and take your personal information off the market. Nino, what are you doing? Nino, I'm trying to record an ad. Personal information. Never worked with children or animals. Hello, Nino. And going after these data brokers on your behalf has always been Incogni's bread and butter. But did you know? So, yeah, I did kind of suck horribly at taking time off. But let's face it, we all knew it was going to happen. I mean, nobody was surprised. Although apparently some people were, because in the videos that I was uploading over my Christmas break, a number of people were saying, what happened to all the World of Warships and World of Tanks videos? Tell me you don't watch Mingles with Jingles without telling me you don't watch Mingles with Jingles. Well, I don't even know why I'm explaining it here, because the people who needed to know are clearly not watching Mingles with Jingles, but whatever. One thing that I did do over Christmas, even if it wasn't taking time off from making videos, was taking time off from checking my emails, which is unfortunate because I missed a rather important one. I missed an email from Erica, who wanted me to wish her son Enrique, or Ricky, a Merry Christmas. Problem was I didn't actually see the email until long after Christmas, so I'm going to wish Ricky a Happy New Year instead. I feel like it's the least I can do. The reason Erica asked me for this request was because Ricky's had a pretty shitty 2025. I mean, let's face it, 2025 was a pretty disastrously bad year for most of us. But for Ricky in particular, 2025 saw the death of his grandmother, whom he was particularly close to. He's been struggling to find work without any success. He's just been having a really, really shitty year, even by the fairly shitty standards of 2025 in general. He's 26 now, but like many of you, he's been watching my stuff on YouTube since he was in high school. And also, like many of you, he particularly enjoys the historical context that I try to include wherever possible and appropriate in whatever it is that I'm doing a video about. So, unfortunately, I couldn't fulfill your mother's request and wish you a happy Christmas because I was taking time off and I didn't bother reading any emails. But I did catch it in time to wish you a happy new year. And to all of you in general, and to Ricky in particular, I hope that 2026 is better than 2025 was. Let's face it, 2025 wasn't a particularly high bar. And while the pessimist in me is saying, well, if you think 2026 couldn't be worse than 2025, then you simply lack imagination. But hey, we can always hope. Fingers crossed. Happy New Year to you all. And Ricky, chin up. Keep your eye on the ball. I'm sure things are going to get better. I certainly hope so. So, I don't know if any of you saw the news. Star Citizen is expected to reach $1 billion in funding this year. It's been in development for 13 years. Still no game. a billion. It reached the $800 million mark in April of last year. And it was at around about 950 million as 2025 ended. It's anticipated it's going to cross the $1 billion threshold sometime in July or August of 2026. Still no actual game after $1 billion and 13 years of development. The single-player campaign, Squadron 42, is supposed to release this year, although I'm not holding my breath for it because they actually use the words drew a line in the sand for Squadron 42 coming out in 2025. Newsflash, it didn't. And that's 2 years after they said it was feature complete and all they needed to do was a little bit of extra polishing. 2 going on 3 years of polishing. That's a lot of polishing. That's going to be an extremely well-polished game. If, whenever that thing comes out, which for all we know, if ever, could be 2027 at this rate, if that isn't the most polished game in the world on release, if that thing needs a day one patch, right, after 3 years of polishing, if it's not perfect, if they dare to have that thing release with a day one patch, I want Chris Roberts' head on a stick. Feature complete, nothing takes 3 years to polish. They're adding new features, aren't they? They said it was feature complete, but Chris Roberts just couldn't resist fucking around with it. Oh, this game did this cool thing. Put that in. But we're feature complete. It's just the one thing. Yeah, but we have to change the foundation of everything in order to... it'll be fine. Feature complete. My arse. This is what Chris Roberts does. It's what he's always done. Every single game he has ever worked on, he's had to be physically restrained, in some cases fired, in order to get the game finished and pushed out the door. The problem with Star Citizen is that he's in charge. He doesn't have a publisher standing over him, telling him, no, that's enough. Publish the damn thing. It's kind of like the situation with George Lucas and the Star Wars prequels, because when he made the first 3 movies, Star Wars, Empire and Jedi, it wasn't his own money. It was 20th Century Fox's money, and he had producers from 20th Century Fox whose job was to make sure that, he was a respected director. He'd made some very, very popular and well-reviewed movies, but, 20th Century Fox's pockets weren't unlimited, and this was a new thing for them. Science fiction had never really caught on. It did after Star Wars came out, but he had people standing over him saying, no, George, you can't do that, George, it's too expensive. Stop being silly, just finish the damn thing. But when it came to doing the prequels, it was all his own money. So he didn't have anybody standing over him saying, no, George, that's a stupid idea, George. In fact, he hired a producer, Rick McCallum. I don't know if you've ever seen behind-the-scenes things, but basically Rick McCallum, it's like his one job was to follow George around and make sure nobody said no to him. Seriously, watch behind-the-scenes footage of the making of the Star Wars prequels, where it's George Lucas and Rick McCallum visiting whatever department they happen to be visiting that day. Let's say the creature effects department, and they're looking at creature designs. And you've got George Lucas questioning these artists, and the look of fear on the faces of these poor guys as George is asking them questions, and you've got Rick McCallum standing behind George Lucas giving them the evil eye in case they dare to say no to George, and it's quite comical. And that's kind of the situation that you have over at Cloud Imperium Games, because Chris Roberts is answerable to nobody. And he's been responsible for some fantastic games. He really, really has. But every single one of them appears to have been great despite him, not directly because of him, because he had the money men who were paying for everything standing over his shoulder saying enough's enough, and in some cases having to fire him in order to get the games released and out the door. And they don't have that situation at Cloud Imperium Games. So 13 years of development, 3 years of polishing, no game, $1 billion. I'm left wondering how they actually expect to turn a profit on this thing, because at this point, pretty much everybody who is ever going to play Star Citizen has already pledged. Chris already has their money. I mean, he's into me for several $100s. He's not getting a penny more, not until I actually see a game. And even then, I mean, I've already paid for the game, so... And that's the problem. Let's say Star Citizen is released next week. Goes out on sale next Monday. Who's going to buy it? Because anybody at this point who was ever going to buy Star Citizen has already pledged and is already effectively getting it, well, not for free because they've already pledged, but they're basically not going to be expected to put down a single penny when that game is released. How are they going to make a profit? Because they've already sold it to everybody. Now everybody's just waiting for the game. That can only mean that when Star Citizen does eventually, assuming any of us are still alive when it happens, but when Star Citizen does eventually come out, it is going to be microtransaction hell. You know, it's going to be the worst live service business model you can possibly imagine. It's going to end up making free-to-play mobile gacha games look reasonable by comparison in order to stand the slightest chance of making good on the billion-dollar cost it took to put that game out. That's assuming it comes out next year when they reach $1 billion. There's no guarantee of that. At this point, Chris Roberts is making Elon Musk look honest. You know, the man has been promising fully autonomous self-driving cars within the next 2 years every year for the last 15 years. Yeah, not so much. In other news, and this one's really, really obscure, by the way. So first I have to ask, do you know who Ria Seehorn is? Now, a number of you probably do, especially if you watched the Breaking Bad prequel from Vince Gilligan, the creator of Breaking Bad. The prequel, Better Call Saul. She was a major character on that, one of the breakout stars of the Better Call Saul show. And Vince Gilligan's just done another show for Apple TV, and it's excellent. It's called Pluribus, which is about the whole world being basically taken over by a sort of hive mind. All the people, with the exception of like 12, 13 people in the entire world, everybody suddenly becomes part of this hive mind. And Ria Seehorn plays one of these 12 people who's trying to rebel against it and restore things the way it was. It's a really, really good show. I've thoroughly enjoyed the whole of the first season, and it's exactly what you'd expect from the guy who created Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. I just found out that Ria Seehorn's very, very first acting role was back in 1997 when she was the tutorial sorceress for a PC Magic the Gathering game. I've never even heard of the gaming. Well, I mean, I've heard of Magic the Gathering, obviously, but I hadn't heard of the 1997 PC gaming version of Magic the Gathering, whatever. But I'll put a link in the video description for anybody who's curious. And this 21-minute long tutorial video, which I assume was included on CD-ROM at the time, is, well, it's painfully bad. It's the sort of thing, I mean, they obviously didn't spend an awful lot of money on the tutorial, that's all I'm going to say. You've got an extremely young Ria Seehorn as the tutorial sorcerer standing next to some guy I presume is the tutorial sorcerer explaining how the game works, but the production values were so low. There's better stuff, homemade stuff on YouTube these days. The costumes are very, very low rent. They couldn't afford shoes for the characters apparently, so they just had like tube socks with silver tape on to act as sandal straps. I mean, it's that kind of cringe. But it's Ria Seehorn's first ever acting role. Apparently she was so proud of it that when the game came out in shops, even though she was never going to play it because she wasn't a Magic the Gathering nerd, you know, it was just her first acting job, but they had a picture of her on the back of the box, so she rushed out and got a copy anyway. Like I said, I'll put a link to this tutorial video on YouTube. For those of you who know who Ria Seehorn is, you will not recognise her because the video resolution is so incredibly shit. But it's recognisably her voice. It's definitely her. In other news, more directly gaming related this time, Steam just published their list of the 2025 best-selling games. Now, these are just the best-selling games on Steam. Obviously, Steam doesn't have any data regarding the best-selling games on Uplay or the Epic Games Store or Good Old Games or whatever. These are just the ones from 2025 that sold the most copies on Steam. It doesn't say what was the overall best-selling game on Steam in 2025. And by the way, this is by revenue, so by profit, not by number of copies sold. And this is very important. But the first to 12th place, again sorted randomly, best-selling games on Steam in 2025 were Counter-Strike 2, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, Defense of the Ancients 2, Apex Legends, Monster Hunter Wilds, Battlefield 6, Call of Duty, Repo, Ark Raiders, Marvel Rivals, and Schedule 1. Now, what's important about this list? Well, first of all, let's just illustrate what's not surprising about this list. Because of all of those 12 titles, 5 of them are free-to-play. So that's 5 free-to-play games which are in the top 12 most profitable games on Steam in 2025. Now that shouldn't be surprising because we're talking about things like Marvel Rivals, Apex Legends, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and Counter-Strike 2. What is surprising, however, is the sheer number of indie game titles that are in that list this year. Now, I'm not going to include Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 in that category because, I mean, they're more of a AA game, an extremely good AA game. Definitely not a AAA game, but they do have a big publisher. There are some AAA publisher titles in that list. You've got Monster Hunter Wilds, Battlefield 6, Call of Duty. But that's just 3 titles out of 12. Okay, you could say Marvel Rivals, but it's a free-to-play game, so it skews outside. But in previous years, this top 12 list has been dominated by AAA publisher titles. And this year, there's only 3, arguably 4. The number of indie games that have made it into this list this year is a big-ass wake-up call for the AAA publishers. We're talking games like Ark Raiders, Repo, Schedule 1. These are games that sell for $20, not $60, $70 or $80 like the AAA games in this list. Which means that they're not just matching the sales of their AAA competitors like Call of Duty, Battlefield 6 and Monster Hunter Wilds. They are outselling their AAA competitors. These are indie titles, and they are outselling their AAA competitors by a factor of 3 or 4 in order to be making the same amount of money. And I'm pretty sure that the only reason Hollow Knight Silksong isn't in that list is because it didn't release until September 2024, so it hasn't been around long enough to make the same amount of money as those AAA titles. I'm reasonably confident, therefore, in predicting that 2026 is going to be the year of the indie game. And I'm not sorry about that, because I've been playing some amazing independent titles recently, in particular over my Christmas break, and doing videos on them. Starcom Unknown Worlds in particular, which basically every time I put one of those videos up, there's another 50 people saying, all right, I snapped under the strain and I went out and got this, and its prequel in a sale bundle. Damn you, Jingles, that's another 50 hours of my life I'm never going to get back. And I make no apologies for that, because it's one of the reasons why I do what I do. I mean, sure, World of Warships, World of Tanks. These are basically my bread and butter. These are the games that keep the lights on. But I really, really like showing you new titles, indie titles that you might otherwise never have heard of, and which you end up really, really enjoying, whether that's just watching the videos, which, you know, is great, but also going out and buying them and playing them for yourself. And I had so much fun doing that over New Year and Christmas. Starcom in particular. I mean, I love doing the Into the Dead videos as well. But Starcom in particular was such a runaway success. And it's particularly gratifying because, I mean, you know, I like doing the World of Tanks and the World of Warships videos. Although I do have to admit, I'm becoming less and less interested in World of Tanks because, I mean, that game's basically turning into a parody of itself. And unfortunately, World of Warships is kind of starting to go the same way. It's not there yet, and hopefully, you know, there's still some life in the old dog. But I do still enjoy World of Warships, and I don't mind making the World of Warships videos. But I love doing the videos on the other stuff. Stuff like Starcom, stuff like Kingdom Come Deliverance, stuff like Into the Dead, The Last Caretaker, The Lift. The indie titles that are made with love and passion by people who actually give a shit. Sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss. Choo Choo Charles was a hit. That was such a good game. and such a cheap game as well. And I don't just mean price. I mean, you know, it kind of looked cheap But again, and the same with Starcom Unknown Worlds, which is another hit. It just proves that gameplay, content, and writing beat graphics every day of the week. I mean, it basically looks like a slightly modernised version of Asteroids, right? It's not winning prizes for graphics, but the writing is so good. And the game mechanics and the gameplay is just so engrossing. Don't believe me? Go and look at the comments of any Starcom video that I've published over the course of the last 2 weeks, and just look at how many people have had their lives sucked away by this game. And I love it when I do that. It doesn't happen often. Like I said, there are hits, there are misses. There've certainly been plenty of misses. Bendy and the, whatever, was it the Ink Machine? I love that game, but it just didn't really resonate with you guys. It's unfortunate, but it happens. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which I maintain is an amazing game, started off quite strong, but now there's only sort of like a hardcore group of people who tune in to watch those videos. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was the same thing. I thought that was a fantastic game. Most of you didn't care for it. And you know what? I have to admit, there's been DLC for it, and I've downloaded it and installed it. Never really felt the urge to fire it up and play it though. It's kind of like that with the DLC for Star Wars Outlaws. Again, another game that, while I recognise, probably suffered more because it was a Ubisoft title, and people were just, fuck Ubisoft, rather than, giving the game a fair chance. And it wasn't a great game, but, it was fine. But it's the same deal with that. They released DLC for it, and I thought, yeah, you know what? I'd rather go and play, I don't know, Into the Dead or Starcom Unknown Worlds. Games that I have actually replayed multiple times because they hold your attention in a way that a lot of these AAA titles just don't. So I guess this is a long-winded way of my saying 2026 I think is going to be the year of the indie title, not just on Steam but also here on my YouTube channel. I don't think I'm going to religiously stick to the same publishing schedule that I have for the last couple of years. 2 World of Warships, 1 World of Tanks, and then a couple of other games every week. So don't be surprised if 1 week you don't see a World of Tanks video and I do an indie title instead. Or 1 week you don't see 2 World of Warships videos. I realise that I might be biting the hand that feeds me here, because those games really have been my bread and butter for the best part of the last 10 years. But I just feel like I need to stretch my legs a little. And I've had so much fun showcasing indie titles over Christmas and New Year that I just want to keep doing it. Hopefully, enough of you will be along for the ride that I'll be able to keep doing that. But even if that doesn't prove to be the case, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't have to make all of the money in the world. I just have to be able to keep a roof over my head and feed myself and the cats. So if dropping some of the regular titles and showcasing more indie titles ends up costing me viewers, and I'm sure that in the short term it probably will, as long as there are enough of you interested in the new indie content to, well, make sure that I'm able to actually keep the lights on, that's a risk that I'm prepared to take. Whatever happens, I guess we're going to find out together. As always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.